According to my social media feed, there are two kinds of people in how we react to the coronavirus. There's those who panic and those who are angry. Now, those who panic, they're the ones who have all the toilet paper and the disinfectant wipes and the paper towels and the fresh chicken and the milk and the eggs that the rest of us can't seem to find anywhere. And those who are angry, well, we're a pretty diverse group. Some of us are angry because those who panic have got all the groceries and they're making us stand in bread lines like it's Stalin's Russia. Some of us are angry because we feel like we're being manipulated by the media and the government, and this whole thing is being blown out of proportion. But actually, most of us are somewhere in the middle. We're not panicking. We're not too angry. I mean, clearly there's something bad happening in the world. We don't want to make it worse. But what are we supposed to believe? Who are we supposed to believe? Who can we trust? I'm trying really hard not to be an idiot here. I'm trying to be informed. But some experts are saying that it's going to be really bad, so we should stay home, wear a surgical mask outside, because here comes the Black Death. And others, they're saying, no, man, this is just going to blow over. It's not as bad as we're being led to believe. The worst thing that's happening is the overreaction. Here's what makes me crazy. The experts that people are believing, the dividing line between the two extreme positions, it tends to fall along the same stupid party lines that have us polarized about everything else. I don't trust party lines. I hate feeling manipulated. You know, trust is just another word for faith. What are we going to put our faith in? Who are we going to put our faith in? How about if you take a little break from scrolling through your bad news feed and your confirmation bias hunting and watch this message about what it's supposed to mean to be a Christian, a person of faith, in these uncertain and confusing days of panic and anger. Check this out.
Welcome to the New Church Podcast.
But how was your week? Everything pretty normal? Good grief. I mean, how fast can things go from like strange to completely bizarre, right? I was talking with my dad about this Sunday, about the coronavirus thing, and he told me that Bill and Carol and the other Carol and some of his friends, they weren't going to come this week because they were in that age group that makes them particularly vulnerable, and I thought they should be safe. So I asked what he was going to do. And he said, about what? I said, you're 82 years old. You're in the vulnerable demographic too. He's like, I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. Think I should stay home? Bob Hart, ladies and gentlemen. He's not here this morning. He's not going to go to work until this whole thing blows over either. This is called a corona vacation. Yeah. But it is a serious deal. It's not a joke. The virus, it is bad news. But I think our reaction to it is even worse. See, there's one group of people that seem to be scared senseless. Like they're buying enough toilet paper to clog the hole in the ozone layer. You know, that's definitely one of the details that movies about the zombie apocalypse, that's definitely one of the details that they got wrong. Because in all those shows, the grocery stores still have things in stock. Dang. You guys seen how empty the shelves are? It's ridiculous. How am I supposed to sit on the roof, eating cans of chocolate pudding, watching the world come to an end, if you people hoard all the canned goods in the first week? Talk about escalating quickly. And then you got the other group, The other group that are just annoyed with the overreaction, with the mass hysteria, they feel manipulated by the fear-mongering of the media. I mean, they canceled sports ball, for goodness sake. You know, it's a good thing this pandemic didn't happen in the fall, right? That would have really been a tragedy. Now, this other group of people, they're pretty sure it's all just a big hoax, a big conspiracy. They want to go around licking everyone else's hands just to make a point. So, you got people who are too afraid, and you've got people who aren't afraid enough. But I think most of us are somewhere in the middle. We recognize that a terrible thing is happening, and we want to do what we can to not make it worse. But how are we supposed to do that? Wash our hands? Stay home for the next 6 months? Paint our windows white? Put a blanket over our head? Hide in the attic? Trust the CDC? Trust our leaders? Trust the government? Trust is a hard one, especially with the media. We have absolutely no reason to trust the people who have been lying to us about the world coming to an end in one way or another for years. Why should we trust the politicians and the experts now? They lie, and then they lie some more, and then every time someone gets a lot richer off all of our fear and our misery. I mean, what's $50 billion among friends, right? But here's the thing. Just because they're liars doesn't mean they're not right. Like Doug Wilson, pastor that I really like, he said this last week. He said, at the same time, having read a book of history before, I know that the Spanish flu killed upwards of 25 million people at the beginning of the 20th century. I know that such things can and do happen. And they happen even if a liar agrees that they happen. So trust is hard. But trust is just another word for faith. It's always going to go bad for us when we put our trust, when we put our faith in anything other than God. When we put our trust in government or well-stocked grocery stores or our fears or even our skeptical cynicism that it's all just an elaborate manipulation for political purposes. Let's see, so we got governments and grocery stores. Did I cover everyone here today? I don't want to leave anyone out of my list. We all need to put our trust in the Lord. I'm trying to call us all back to putting our faith in God alone, to not let our minds wander from putting our faith in God, in Christ alone. C.S. Lewis, he wrote about a new hysteria that was sweeping across England back in his day. Everyone was in a panic over this new pestilence, this new threat to life and peace of mind. So I'm going to read from his essay on the atomic bomb. But I'm going to replace the word atomic bomb with the word coronavirus. He said, in one way, we think a great deal too much of the coronavirus. How are we to live in a pandemic age? And I'm tempted to reply, the same way that you would have lived in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year. Or as you would have lived in a Viking age when raiders from Scandinavia might land and they might cut your throat any night. Or actually, as you're already living in the age of cancer an age of syphilis, an age of paralysis, an age of air raids and railway accidents and motor accidents. In other words, do not let us begin by exaggerating the novelty of our situation. Believe me, you and everyone you love were already sentenced to death before the coronavirus was discovered. And quite a high percentage of us were gonna die in unpleasant ways. So this is the first point to be made, and the first action to be taken. It's to pull ourselves together. If we're all going to be destroyed by a virus, let that virus, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things, like praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing our children, playing tennis, chatting with our friends over a pint and a game of darts. Not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about viruses. They may kill our bodies, but they need not dominate our minds. You think he might be onto something there? We need to live our lives. We need to love our families. We need to do our work, take care of the people who are around us that need to be taken care of. When I saw how people ran out and stripped the stores in a desperate attempt to make sure that they had more than they needed at the expense of whatever anyone else might need, I couldn't help but think that we, as a society, have lost our way in dealing with the plague that was called the Black Death. Martin Luther wrote this. He said, "Therefore I shall ask God mercifully to protect us, and then I shall fumigate, help purify the air, administer medicine, and take medicine. I shall avoid places and persons where my presence is not needed, in order to not become contaminated, and thus perchance infect and pollute others, and so cause their death as a result of my negligence. If God should wish to take me, he will surely find me. And I want to have done what he expected of me, so that I'm not responsible for either my own death or the death of anyone else. But if my neighbor needs me, I shall not avoid place or person, but will go freely." That's what it means to be a Christian in a time like this. This is from Psalm 91. It says, "Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrow that flies in the day. Do not dread the disease that stalks in darkness, nor the disaster that strikes at midday. Though 1,000 fall at your side, though 10,000 are dying around you, these evils will not touch you." When Christianity was young, when most people on earth had never met a Christian, they had never heard of Jesus Christ, somewhere around the year 165 AD, the emperor of Rome was Marcus Aurelius. And the first of two really bad plagues swept across the Roman Empire. The first one was called the Plague of Galen. Lasted about 15 years. And a quarter to a third of the entire population died from that plague. No one really knows how many for sure, because they were all too busy dying or trying not to die to keep good records. People think it might have been an early outbreak of the smallpox. Then the second plague, it hit around 251 AD, and it was just as bad. It took out almost half the population again. They think that might have been the measles. No one's really sure. But here's the thing. The doctors, the politicians, the philosophers, all the leaders of the Roman world, they ran for the hills. They left their families and their friends and their loved ones. They left everyone behind and they got the heck out of Dodge. It was considered virtuous and noble to run away and save their own neck. But that's not what the Christians did. That strange new group of religious weirdos, they stayed behind and they took care of sick people. They risked their own life to help other people. They weren't afraid to die. You know, if a religion can't provide a satisfactory explanation for all the troubles of the world, or if it can't offer hope in the face of all the trouble, then that religion is going to be dropped. These plagues, they were the end of the Roman and the Greek gods. Because from then on, they wouldn't be thought of as anything more than just silly myths, fun stories, nothing more. But these same plagues, they were the beginning of the rise of Christianity. It's when Christianity became a world-dominating force. Because of the church's reaction to these plagues, that's what really caused the church to grow as fast as it did. One of the early church leaders, a man named Cyprian, he seemed to almost welcome the epidemic. He said only non-Christians had anything to fear from a plague. And I don't think he was delusional. I think his words are kind of inspiring. He said, the just are dying with the unjust. Although this mortality has contributed nothing else, it has especially accomplished this for Christians and servants of God, that we are learning not to fear death. Dionysius, another church leader, he wrote about how the Christians took care of the sick, how they fed people and nursed them back to health. And if they didn't nurse them back to health, then they gave them a Christian burial. He said the heathens behaved in a very different way. At the first onset of the disease, they would push the suffering people away and they would flee from their dearest. They would throw them into roads before they were dead. They would treat unburied corpses as dirt, hoping to avert the spread and the contagion of the fatal disease. But it didn't matter what they did. They found it difficult to escape. On the other hand, he said the Christians showed unbounded love and loyalty, never sparing themselves and thinking only of one another, heedless of danger. They took charge of the sick, attending to their every need, ministering to them in Christ. Many, in nursing and caring for others, transferred their death to themselves and then died in their place. The best of our brothers and sisters lost their lives in this manner. The result of strong faith seems in every way the equal of martyrdom. A Roman magistrate named Julian, he was very offended at the nobility of the Christians. So he made a law. He ordered a decree that Roman citizens must start acting with greater virtue than those barbaric Galileans. It didn't work. But that's what politicians do.
They make laws that demand citizens to be better people. They try to legislate compassion. I think we see a lot of that these days. Now, why did the Christians react to the pandemic the way they did? What was it about the teachings of Jesus that caused them to risk their own life to help strangers? We don't really have to guess, because they died quoting these words. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. The Roman world had never seen anything like that before. No one had ever seen anything like that before. These people worshiped their God by serving other people. They showed devotion to their God, Jesus Christ, by caring for poor people and sick people, dying people. And they were even considered martyrs to their faith if they got sick and died feeding the heathens chicken soup. I've heard the phrase, this is a world changer. I've heard that a lot over the last week. Haven't you heard that? They're talking about the coronavirus. This is a world changer. But the world has seen plenty of plagues before. The coronavirus is not a world changer. The thing the world had never seen before, though, the true world changer, was the gospel of Jesus Christ. There was another early church leader, a man whose name was Tertullian. And he was talking about the same thing. And he said this: it's our care of the helpless, our practice of loving kindness, that brands us in the eyes of our opponents. Only look, they say. Look how they love one another. So the Roman pagans, they left their families to die. And the Christians, they stayed behind and they took care of them. And a lot of people died. But most of them didn't. And then, once a person survived the virus, they usually had immunity to it then. So imagine how that looked in a world that didn't know anything about germs and microbes. It kind of looked like the Christians had miraculous superpowers. Like their God must be the real deal. And then, to the people they took care of, the people that they had saved their life, how hard do you think it was to convert them to Jesus after that? Because this was their new family now. Their old family had left them to die. So new networks were created, new communities. So then, as Rome was rebuilt from the ruins that were left behind by the plagues, it was rebuilt in the light of the gospel. This is how Christianity grew, guys. This is how the Holy Spirit used this event to make it what it is. So what does that mean for us in this crazy situation where the whole world is shutting down and turning our lives inside out, with everything being so unpredictable and uncertain? Here's what that means for us. It means that we don't give in to anxiety. Anxiety is when we're afraid of something that hasn't happened yet and might not happen. It could happen. That's why we're anxious. This coronavirus thing, it's not going away anytime soon, you know? We could be in the grips of this thing for weeks or months. And it might cause bigger complications to our lives than a shortage of toilet paper. Everything is very uncertain. Everything about this virus and this situation is uncertain. And uncertainty creates fear and anger. I mean, sickness and death and discomfort. Sure, we're afraid of those things. Economic decline, job security, business viability. Yeah, these are things we worry about. Interruptions to school and events and sports and music and theater and travel. See, those things, they take a toll on us too. They like slowly erode our confidence and our joy. But the Christian response to all this, are we supposed to just freak out and complain with all the other Romans? Are we supposed to act like pagans and heathens and unbelievers? What difference does our faith make? I mean, if we're just going to suffer the same consequences and trouble that everyone else suffers, as Christians, we don't have some kind of silver bullet or magic cure. We don't. Jesus never promised that we wouldn't suffer or that we wouldn't have problems in this life. He never promised that he would spare any of us from sickness or pain or disease or death. He does spare us sometimes, but he didn't promise that he would. But he did promise us something. He actually promised us a lot of things. He gave us his word. We have the sure promises of Christ's word. When we, as Christians, when we serve our neighbor in times of sickness and death, and when we serve our neighbor, that reminds us that we're not the ones who are called to heal the entire world. It's not our job to save the world. That's something that can only be done by Jesus. See, he's the one who faced the sin of the whole world for all of us. And it killed him too. But that's not the end of his story, is it? Death won't be the end of our story either. Death is not the end of the story for anyone who has faith and trust in Jesus. This virus, like all disease, like all sickness and pain and death, it's rooted in sin. Not any particular sin, just sin. Adam's sin, your sin, my sin. And sin is not the end of any of our story because of Jesus, because he took all that weight, all that sin on himself, and he died. And then he broke the chains of death, and he rose again. This virus, it's not going to get the last word on any of us, because Jesus rose from the dead. Because of that, you will rise from the dead too. Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrow that flies in the day. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You might die? Jesus promises you that death will not be the end of you. Do not dread the disease that stalks in darkness, nor the disaster that strikes at midday, nor the pandemic that is blasted 24/7 on news media, nor the fearmongers who fill you with doubt and panic and cry out to you through your social media feed, and they say, "Where is your God? Has he abandoned you?" Though 1,000 fall at your side, though 10,000 are dying around you, these evils will not touch you. Now, Jesus never promised that we won't get sick from COVID-19 or any other fancy named pestilence. Not now, not in the immediate future. But he does promise to be a place of sure hope that stands against all the uncertainty of this world. A place to rest when the world all around is in panic. A place of comfort and peace when our soul aches with anxiety. In the midst of all this fear and uncertainty, embrace the light of the gospel and hold firmly to the hope of the Lord Jesus Christ. Trust him. Be fervent in prayer. Show Jesus' compassion to everyone in your life, whether you know them or whether you don't. Just serve people as selflessly as you're able. And then tell them about the hope that you have in Jesus, the faith that you have in Jesus. These are uncertain times, but we have a lot of certain hope to offer people in this time of anxiety. So as we talk with people who might feel panicked, remember that we all have the gift of the gospel to share with them. Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." That's the only place to find rest and refuge from all this madness. That's the most important thing we have to share with people. As followers of Jesus, we're the ones who know that there's not any reason to panic. Even if the earth gives way and the mountains are moved into the heart of the sea, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in time of need. I hope these promises fill you with strength and guide you in life and just shine through you as a worried world stands in need of the hope that's only found in Jesus. Trust in this. Have faith in this. Amen.
For more information, go to newchurchtexas.com or email frank@frankhart.com.
If these online resources have been meaningful to you, please consider going to newchurchtx.com/give and show your support by helping make this ministry possible. Thank you.